Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm Mandi, author of 10 young adult novels so far, and welcome to February's kind of write and craft book situation. So, I have this goal where I read one book on writing craft or professional development. I mean, most of them are writing craft, so I'm still calling it writing craft, but like, here we are. Anyway, so I've been doing that for over a year now, and it's time for February's book. However, things are going to be a little bit complicated for February, so typically speaking, I just pick a book and read a book in a month, and I vlog it, and here we are. But this month, my writing group has kicked off a book club, and they're reading a book on craft. So, I'm going to try and do the book club thing as my book a month, except the book club runs for 6 weeks, I think, so I'm going to be reading faster than the book club, so I can do this in a month. Also, there's homework. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to try February out and see if reading alongside the writing group that I adore and doing the homework and like all the things, right, is feasible, if I can do it in the limited amount of time that I have, if I enjoy it, whatever. I'm just going to test it out for this book that we're reading right now. And then in March, when they start talking, what's our next book, I will reevaluate and see if I like doing with them, if I have time to do with them and do my normal one a month, which is very unlikely, or if I just want to do my personal one a month. We'll see. So, this is a trial run. The book we are reading is On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King. It's Thursday, and I haven't pulled this out of the packaging yet, so reading along with my writing group actually isn't going so hot yet, because this is week 1. We're supposed to be reading like who knows how many pages, and obviously I haven't, so this doesn't bode well for me continuing the book club. We'll see. Welcome to book club. Yada yada. Yada yada. Yada yada. Week of January 31st through February 6th. Here we go. Read section 0 through 21. Okay. Here we go. Not sure what that means, but here we are. Oh look, there's a little flame. That's kind of cute. If you don't have time to read, you don't have the time or the tools to write. I feel called out, Stephen. You don't want to know how much I've been reading this year. Dave's Rag Jumper, story 1, 3 parts. What now? Huh? My name is just Davis. There's a whole. I don't know what's going on this page. On Writing with Stephen King. Queen? I called him Stephen Queen, you guys. In 1999, Stephen King began to write about his craft and his life. By mid-year, a widely reported accident jeopardized the survival of both. In his months of recovery, the link between writing and living became more crucial than ever. Rarely has a book on writing been so clear, so useful, and so revealing. We will see if I agree with that assessment. On Writing begins with a mesmerizing account of King's childhood and his uncannily early focus on writing to tell a story. A series of vivid memories from adolescence, college, and the struggling years that led up to his first novel, Carrie, will afford readers a fresh and often very funny perspective on the formation of a writer. I should write a memoir someday and include pictures of my funny little crayon drawings. King next turns to the basic tools of his trade, how to sharpen and multiply them through use, and how the writer must always have them close at hand. He takes the reader through crucial aspects of the writer's art and life, offering practical and inspiring advice on everything from plot and character development to work habits and rejection. Serialized in The New Yorker to vivid acclaim, On Writing culminates with a profoundly moving account of how King's overwhelming need to write spurred him toward recovery and brought him back to his life. Brilliantly structured, friendly, and inspiring, On Writing will empower and entertain everyone who reads it. They are expecting a great deal from this book. Shall we see what the sections are? Honesty's the best policy. Liars prosper. Fascinating. forward. I imagine that's not a section she's talking about. Second forward, third forward. I'm going to read all of these. CV. Oh, okay. I don't know what that stands for. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, they're like literally broken into sections. It's all starting to make sense. We all had to choose a section to do a little homework on. And I picked a section in the document, but I was like, I don't know what any of this means. It's literally broken into sections. Okay, she said, what, 1 through 20? Was that it? 58 pages. Although the first forward starts on page 7, so it's really 51. 51 pages. We can do that before Sunday, right? Right? I am driving, so this may be ridiculously loud and not usable footage that I have to refilm later. But, pulled out on writing today. I filmed the intro yesterday, and then I actually pulled it out to read today. And I read the 21 sections for this week in an hour. Did not want to stop reading. It's brilliant, and I just want to keep turning pages. So far, it's just been like little vignettes on his childhood, Stephen King's childhood, and various memories he has of things that forged him into the writer that he is, basically. Yeah, I don't know, it's just reading like a really fascinating novel about some kid's life, and not necessarily like a biography of a real human, but it's been really good. Like, I've really enjoyed it, and he slipped in some good writing advice among the stories about what he used to do as a kid to tell stories. So far it's been very interesting. I did highlight one specific phrase, which I had heard before, I think specifically from Stephen King, about how the first time you write a story, you're telling yourself the story, and then when you rewrite it, it then becomes for everyone else. So you have to get rid of everything that isn't the story. Which I was very familiar with that sort of idea, with like the first draft you're telling yourself the story, and then after that you fix it, basically. You cut out all the things that have nothing to do with your story. And I don't remember necessarily where I first heard that, but I'm assuming it was probably just like a Stephen King quote or something. Actually, in the book, it's him quoting someone else who said that to him, which is interesting. And there's probably been other people who have said it as well. I don't know, but I was familiar with it, but I liked it, so I highlighted it, and here we are. I didn't actually read past the 21 section. I wanted to, but I did not. I did bring the book this weekend, so I might read more. Who knows? Heyo, I feel like I haven't turned on my lights in ages, so I turned them on, but they seem really dim, and I'm going to be very sad when they die. That's not relevant. So, yesterday, Sunday, we had our discussion question. Okay, Stephen King opens his memoir of the craft by stating he believes writers are formed, not made. He feels a lot of people have the equipment and some talent. How does this align with your own experiences? Do you feel you were formed or made? I kind of want to go back and reread the section, because the first time around when I read the section, granted I was reading very quickly because I read all of it, you know, all in a row. Like, not the whole book, but the whole sections that we were doing. Anyway, what I got from what he was saying the first time when I read through it was that you're either born a writer or you're not. Like, you can't learn the trade if you don't already have that skill set, like, in your genes. You know, you were formed that way, but you can't be made. That's what I was getting, and then when we all started chatting about it in the, you know, discussion board, I guess you'd call it, it made me question if I had read that correctly, because I felt like some people were swapping the formed and made. Granted, they're very similar words, but anyway, swapping it to be like, you aren't born that way, you can. Anyway, it turned into a whole like nature versus nurture conversation, which is fine, that's what the question was about, but it was making me question which one is which. Like, was the formed nature or is made nature? I need better definitions. Just a quick note from editor. When I say tell stories throughout this whole little monologue that I go on, I mean write books.
because I do feel like poetry in itself is a form of storytelling. So when I'm saying tell stories, what I'm saying is write books. Just keep that in mind.
My personal take, I think, is that you can get better, which is great. I just rewrote a book that I wrote 10 years ago, and I would like to think it's 1,000 times better because I've learned so much more about writing since then. But I do think that if you're not born with whatever the storytelling gene is, you can't learn it. Here's why I think that. Because from the moment I could breathe, I was telling stories. It's always been a passion. Even when I didn't even know what that meant. And then on top of that, so I have a friend who is a poet. Absolutely brilliant with words. Has said to me before that she cannot even comprehend the stories that come out of my brain. Because writing is something she can do, but telling stories maybe not as much. I have a sister who is a poet and can tell stories, but she doesn't have a passion for the storytelling. I wish she did. Some of her half-finished stories are some of my favorites, and I wish she would write them, but it's just not something that she pursues. And then there's me. I can't do poetry. I literally cannot even understand it. It doesn't matter how many classes I take, how many times my sister or my friends sit down and try to explain it to me. My brain cannot wrap itself around how to form the music of poetry. Can't do it. So what I take from my life experience of myself, my sister, and my friend, and other various people in my life, is that A, you are born with certain skill sets. Because it's an instinct, I feel. Writing is an instinct, poetry, it's instinctual, you can learn the different mechanics of it, but yeah, there's something instinctual that if you don't have it, you just don't have it. That's how I feel. But I also feel that you can have whatever storytelling gene, and not do anything with it. Like my sister, who just doesn't care enough to finish the stories. That's not a passion of hers. It's fine. So I don't know, but I do feel like you have to start with a basic something that you can build on top of, or you can't. If you don't have that basic something, you're never going to be able to tell stories. Personal opinion. Because storytelling isn't about, it's not about good writing. There are some terribly written stories that have gotten wild, out of this world, audiences. People go crazy for them, even though the stories themselves maybe aren't written so well, because it's the story underneath the writing that actually resonates. And if you don't, it's not about having a way with words, it's about being able to communicate story. I don't know, you guys. I talk in circles. It's fine. Anyway, it was a fascinating discussion. There you go. I guess the answer is I don't really know, but on some level, I do feel like people are born storytellers. Whether or not they pursue that is another question, but I don't think you can make a storyteller. I just don't think you can. I am most definitely currently a hot mess, but it's Friday. Today was an excessively long Friday. I haven't read any of Stephen King's On Writing all week, and now tomorrow the book club is potentially getting on a Zoom to discuss things, so I was like, I should read. So I'm reading, but I'm not taking the time to brush my hair before talking to the camera, so here we are. Anyway, I've been reading. I've annotated two things. Well, not really I didn't take notes. I highlighted, I guess, two things so far in today's reading. Let's see if I can find them. The first was a section that may have simply hit home because it's been a really long Friday. But also, it's kind of how I feel about my life in writing sometimes. Yeah, just substitute, his jobs for being a nanny. I wasn't having much success with my own writing either. Yada, yada, yada. For the first time in my life, writing was hard. The problem was the teaching. I liked my coworkers and loved the kids. Even the Beavis and Butthead types and living with English could be interesting. But by most Friday afternoons, I felt as if I'd spent the week with jumper cables clamped to my brain. If I ever came close to despairing about my future as a writer, it was then. I could see myself 30 years on, wearing the same shabby tweed coats with patches on the elbows, pot belly rolling over my Gap khakis from too much beer. I'd have a cigarette cough from too many pack of Pall Malls, thicker glasses, more dandruff, and in my desk drawer 6 or 7 unfinished manuscripts which I would take out and tinker with from time to time, usually when drunk. If asked what I did in my spare time, I'd tell people I was writing a book. What else does any self-respecting creative writing teacher do in his or her spare time? And of course I'd lie to myself, telling myself there was still time. It wasn't too late. There were novelists who didn't get started until they were 50, hell, even 60. Probably plenty of them. I just bracketed that on one side and said, oof, because it really struck home because it's Friday and I'm feeling dead inside. And then on the next page, I teared up a bit, almost cried. He was talking about his wife and how supportive she always is. And then said, writing is a lonely job. Having someone who believes in you makes a lot of difference. They don't have to make speeches. Just believing is usually enough. There you go. That's how reading is going right now. I'm on section 28. I have to get to... I don't remember. I'll look it up. 38, maybe, by tomorrow. It's going well, though. I really, really like this book. In the early afternoon, I have all the energy of a boa constrictor that's just swallowed a goat. That's literally me. We hit lunch, and then suddenly I just melt. Guys, the beginning section is called CV. I could not for the life of me find anything that explained why in the book. It's been bugging me. I started referring to it as his childhood vignettes. But I just now Googled it because I came to the end of the CV section. And the next section is what writing is or something. Anyway, I came to the end of the section and was like, I need to know. Before I move on with the rest of this book, I need to know. So I Googled it, and Google was not helpful. It was like, oh, the book is separated into 5 sections. One of them is called CV. And I was like, okay, gee, thanks. I know that part. Anyway, so then I just literally Googled, what does CV mean? No, like, on writing Stephen King attached to it at all. And what came up is a Latin term that means course of one's life. I'm really hoping that is the CV. I assume it is, that this is, because I love that. Love it. I made some tea, I lit a candle, I had a shower, I spent time with Jesus. I'm feeling better about Friday as a whole. It's a beautiful world, you guys. Life is great. Yeah. I was in such a mood an hour ago. Anyway, I really enjoyed the how many ever sections of the CV stuff that I read earlier. I'm looking forward to the gathering of the Hedgies tomorrow to talk about it. I cried like 3 or 4 different times tonight. I teared up at the you just need someone who believes in you thing, which I already talked about. I full on cried when he talked about his mom dying of cancer. I think there was some other time that I cried. I was emotional, but how much of that was because I was in my Fridays are the worst state of mind? I don't know. I might have cried anyway, but like, I feel like maybe I wouldn't have cried as much. Like, I might have teared up and like felt it internally, but not like been weeping on the outside, if I hadn't been a wreck. But anyway, yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed the CV section. So, I'm looking forward to the rest of it, which I assume is like the actual writing craft stuff? I don't know. I don't know if any of this book is actually on writing craft, or if it's just Stephen King discussing his life. Also, side note, I've never read anything of Stephen King's, or watched any of the movies, I don't think. I have heard of a few of them, like Carrie and The Shining, but, yeah, I typically steer clear of horror, because I don't need to be scared out of my mind. Why would I want that? And, he's just sort of the name that I associate with And I avoid if I possibly can. Other than like psychological thrillers. I love a good psychological thriller. Has he written those? Or are his books those? Honestly, I don't even know. I don't know what he actually writes because I've never read any of it or looked into any of it. I just think Stephen King, scary. Go the other way. Anyway, I've really enjoyed his writing style of this, like, memoir on writing thing, though, so there's that. Hi, I am feeling just spectacular, as I'm sure you can see. Anyway, sickness aside, I just read the What Writing Is section, and it was interesting. Stephen was talking about, Stephen, we're on first name basis now, was talking about writing being a form, or the form, of telepathy, which was interesting, and then he closed that section with saying that you have to come to writing anyway but lightly, because it's a serious business. I don't know, it was an interesting section. I'm about 20 pages into the on writing section, which seems to be the biggest section in the book. Could be wrong, but it seems to be the biggest one. Makes sense since that's what the book is called. Anyway, about 20 pages in, and so far I'm agreeing with everything that Stephen is saying about various things, like you can't expect the muse to just show up for you. You have to show up for the muse, which is definitely true. Like, if you don't sit down to write, except when you're motivated or inspired or whatever, like, you're never gonna write a book. So, absolutely agree with that. I highlighted a few things which may not make any impact out of context, but I'm about to read them anyway. Good writing consists of mastering the fundamentals, vocabulary, grammar, the elements of style, and then filling the third level of your toolbox with the right instruments. That, yeah, that is a callback to something he said earlier, so probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but here we go. Another thing I highlighted was, if you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. That one's pretty self-explanatory, although he did go on to explain it for like 4 pages. Oh, there was also this little one that I just liked, that if there's no joy in it, it's just no good. It's like, he was telling a story about his son playing saxophone, and only pulling it out to play during prescribed practice times, and then putting it away. Because there was no joy in it. Maybe he would have learned to play well, but he just, there was no joy in it. It wasn't a passion. Oh, another thing I highlighted: if God gives you something you can do, why in God's name wouldn't you do it? I think that's the last thing nope, that's not the last thing I highlighted. Still, I believe the first draft of a book, even a long one, should take no more than 3 months, the length of a season. I felt so validated by this section, you guys. He was talking about, you know, showing up every day and having a specific writing time, schedule, whatever. And he also discussed how that looks different for every author. But then he was discussing what he does. His is 2,000 words a day, and mine's, generally speaking, 1,000 words is like my average good writing day. But like, everything was just, yes, making total sense. Like, he was talking about how if he doesn't sit down to write every day, and maybe take a day off here and there, but like sit down and write every day, the story just starts to get stale and to slip away, and the characters just aren't as vivid anymore if I take breaks longer than like 2 days. And yes, all of it. I agreed 100%. I felt it in my bones. I was like, this is it. This is it. So apparently I write like Stephen King. That's what I'm hearing. And that was the last thing I highlighted. So, diving back into it. So we've come to probably the one and only place in the book where Stephen King gives an exercise. And he starts out by giving this long-winded backstory for the people that we're going to be writing about. And it's basically like an ex-boyfriend stalking the girlfriend. And then, boom, finish the story. Except he says, before you begin, to change the genders of the protagonist that he's described, so that the girlfriend is actually the stalker, which is all well and good. But then he says this: make the ex-wife the stalker. In other words, perhaps it's a mental institution she's escaped from instead of the city jail. Rude. Why couldn't she have been in the jail exactly like the dude was? What are you saying, Stephen King? Okay, I wrote 600 words of nonsense. It's actually kind of interesting, and if I was the type of person to, you know, write stories about stalkerish serial killer girlfriends, I might follow this thread through and make a story with it, but it's a little outside my comfort zone. It was kind of fun to write, not gonna lie, but yeah, I don't think I'm gonna try and make this into a novel. Don't mind the loud children, but I needed to get on here because I'm near the end of On Writing, and Stephen is talking about his car injury, and when he started talking about his collapsed lung, ugh, guys, one of my lungs genuinely stopped working, and I doubled over in pain and, like, was just grasping my side and crying in the kitchen where I was reading. The description of the broken legs and hips and his spine and stuff hurt. But the lung is what got me, and I just fell over and was like gasping for air. So that was fun. They're so loud out there, and I'm so sorry. But I needed you to know that being an empath is hard, okay? Okay, well, finished the book. It was actually pretty interesting to read. Furthermore, part 2 was just a list of books that Stephen King had enjoyed and read in the, you know, time frame that he was publishing the book, I guess. So that seems a little odd, but whatever. I did notice, like, at least 2 of them were from his wife.